Thanks for joining me for a presentation on making money from photography. I've been making money from my photos for about 18 years now, mainly from stock photography, but increasingly I've been selling prints of my work both online and in small local galleries. This presentation was originally given to my local camera club earlier this year, and I've converted it into a YouTube video so that I can reach a larger audience. I've got one favour to ask though. I'm trying to monetize my YouTube channel, and what I desperately need are more subscribers. So if you like this type of video, please subscribe to my channel using the subscribe button below. Thanks so much, and let's get on now with the presentation itself.
There are many opportunities to make money as a photographer. You can be a photographer for hire, taking portraits, covering weddings, photographing products, real estate, and many more opportunities. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, although it isn't easy these days as everyone has a good camera in their pocket and they don't really value professional images in the way that they once did. Then you can license your images to stock agencies, and I'll talk a lot more about that. Finally, you can sell prints of your work, both online and in person, in galleries or art shows. That is the latter part of this presentation. What is a stock photo? It is simply an image that is available to meet the needs of a designer or an editor when they need it, and is usually available as an instant download that they can slot into their project. In the past, editors commissioned photographers to illustrate a particular subject. Now they search online, see something that meets the need and license it. Images can be used for web pages, apps, prints, calendars, greeting cards, magazines and news outlets, advertising, and of course lifestyle images. They are sometimes the butt of jokes, as in this Vince Vaughn cheesy example. Or, in this Steve Heap even cheesier example of the classic lady smiling while talking to a customer on a headset image that I'm sure you have all seen. I'm a bit embarrassed to say that this image series of mine has earned a massive $19 so far. Clearly no one thinks that I am the sort of person to talk to their customers. But stock photos are much broader than these photos of people posing for the camera. This photo of mine was actually a grab shot when I was walking along the seafront in Waikiki in Hawaii. I was there on business. Well, someone has to go there for a conference. The colours of the surfboards against the sky caught my eye. Over the years, that one photo has earned $1,800 for me, and it has been spotted all over the place, advertising places and companies with something to do with sea and sun. But that one photo with a bit of Photoshop magic has been converted into a real money earner with total sales of $3,800 by using backgrounds from other photos in my portfolio, or even no background at all, to allow someone to add their own. My bestseller, even after all these years, is still my lovely cat. I took this one way back in 2011, and I've seen this everywhere. From animals trying to contact you from beyond the grave to vet websites and cat food packets. Altogether, this one has earned $5,500 from over 5,038 downloads or licenses. Now $1 per sale doesn't sound a lot, but actually that is well above what a stock photo is likely to earn these days. Way back in time, stock agencies had to deal with a physical product, a film negative or a 35mm slide. Probably that is a mystery to some of you. Magazines and newspapers were profitable and could afford to pay good money for the photos they used, and they received a physical copy of the negative for their money. Times were good, and photographers did very well out of it. So why do photos earn so little now? Many reasons. Everything is online now, and so all the costs associated with distributing imagery have largely vanished. Good photos are everywhere, and the competition is often a free download from Google Images. As a result, there is an oversupply of images. A search on Shutterstock reveals over 5 million photos of cats in their database. Finally, artificial intelligence systems are getting great at creating certain types of image, and the end users are increasingly creating those in place of licensing a real photo. But there are also many more uses of images and videos on websites, blogs, online stories, and ads. And that brings to an important point. I loosely talk about selling my photos, but I'm not actually selling anything physical. I'm actually licensing my images to the stock agency, and they are licensing it on to the end user. The agencies are generally non-exclusive, which means that I can supply my photos to many different agencies. It was up to 20 at one stage, but now I have focused down on the 10 better performing agencies. And there are no limits to the number of times an image can be licensed. They can also continue to sell for many years, and so my stock earnings are more like a pension. The money continues to come in whether I take more photos or not. When you ask how much can I earn from licensing a stock photo, the answer is who knows. I can tell you the average amount I receive across my entire portfolio. It is around 80 cents. But the actual amount I receive for an individual usage ranges from 4 cents to $500 or more. And that could be for the exact same image. So, what can you sell? I like to think of the opportunity as being people, things, and places. I focus much more on the things and places categories, and increasingly I'm spending more time on places. Why? You have already seen how successful, or not, my portrait of the happy person with a headset has been. That subject area has many professional images of great models, and I just can't compete there. And AI is really good now at creating images of a person wearing a headset, so why bother trying to compete with that? A similar story plays out with simple photos of objects. AI can create them quickly and accurately. Photos of real places are in demand, especially of cities that are rapidly developing, and AI just can't create an accurate photo of a real city skyline. It invents buildings that aren't there in real life. Let's have a look at the legal aspects, at least in the USA. People have no general right to privacy in a public area, and so a photo can be taken of a building, a statue, or a group of people in a public space. You can use that on your own website, in your portfolio, or sell it as a print for someone's wall. But the act of publishing that image brings some potential issues. The publisher of an image is the one that has some legal risks. If the publisher is using the photo to illustrate a story that is in the news, they can claim they are using the photograph editorially, and they do not need the permission of the people in the photo to use it. But if they use it to promote a product or a political point of view, they must obtain an agreement from any people that are recognizable, or from the artist who created a piece of sculpture. That is normally provided as a legally signed model or property release. The need for this release for buildings is less clear. Some modern buildings have designs that are copyrighted or trademarked. As a general rule, a photo that includes multiple buildings in a skyline shot is more acceptable to agencies. Editorial usage of this photo could include a travel article about the Ocean City Boardwalk, or it could be an article about the issues of obesity. But if the publisher used it on a website promoting a particular weight loss product, they could certainly be in trouble. There is a big market for editorial images, though. I have a few images of the entrance to Costco, and whenever there is a story in the press about Costco, I often see one of my images used to illustrate it. The broader market is for commercial usage, though, and this photo looks like it might be a problem. However, the house was mine at the time, and so I was able to give permission to use it as a location, and I removed any identifying marks from the drilling rig. As a result, websites can use my photo to illustrate their own work, although I'm not sure just how ethical that is to use photos of someone else's work as though it was your own. So that is the background to the industry. How successful have I been? I've not mentioned it so far, but you can also create short videos and upload those to stock agencies as well. And so here is a chart of my earnings from photos and videos over the past 12 years or so. A lot of success for the first 10 years as I added more images and videos to my portfolio, and then a dropping off from 2022 onwards because of all the issues of lower payouts and more competition that we have discussed. And how many images did I need to earn those royalties? Quite a lot. Almost 20,000 photos now in some of the agencies, although I have been adding those assets month after month over the years. It is also interesting to see how things have changed over those years in terms of what have been the most successful images. In 2017, it was mainly happy sunny scenes. By 2021, it was much more downbeat, at least for me, with issues of vaping, opioids, COVID, and evictions filling my bestseller lists. It confirms that you need as broad a range of images in your portfolio as you can manage. You never know what is going to sell. If I look across all my agencies since I started, you can see my best-selling images. A few pictures of cats here, but also some nice landscape and cityscape photos that also do well as prints. It is interesting to note that altogether, my images have been licensed and downloaded about 425,000 times over that period. So, what is involved in stock photography? You clearly need to find some interesting subjects that have some interest to others, although I must admit I have quite a few pictures in my portfolio that have never been licensed. You process them for a bright, warm feel. Sometimes I move to Photoshop to remove logos, but increasingly Lightroom is able to do that as well. I then add a short caption, a longer description, and add about 30 keywords to the image. I can't stress enough the importance of doing this properly. Without good keywords, no one will ever find your images. There are some good AI tools around to help, and I have written an article on my blog about that. The link is in the description below. Finally, I save them as 5,000 pixel JPEGs and upload them to the agencies. But how can you be successful? Part of that is anticipating the news before it becomes big news. I took photos of some bitcoins way back in 2017, and over the next 18 months, they earned about $1,700. I do wish I had bought just one or two real bitcoins around the same time, though. Then I saw the increasing problems with opioid addiction and create some photos to illustrate that using an old bottle of pills I had been given by a dentist. $8,000 in earnings in around 48 months. COVID was obviously big news, and I rapidly created some photos illustrating what our lives had become. $2,600 in around 10 months. You can also create images that can be used to illustrate stories. This abandoned cinema billboard was perfect for the key messages we heard at the start of the pandemic. $1,200 in total earnings from that bit of Photoshop work. All that sounds great, but what is also true is that stock photography is in decline. My graph shows it clearly, and we have talked about the reasons behind it, which are not going to improve. As a result, I decided to move my focus towards the sale of prints of my best work as an additional income stream. There are many ways to sell art online. You know these sites and probably many more besides. I've been focusing on 3 for my own portfolio: Fine Art America, Pictorem and Etsy, with Etsy being the most recent outlet. As you can see, I have wildly different numbers of images at each site, which reflects how long I have been using them, as well as the difficulty in adding new products. Fine Art America and Pictorem are basically upload and forget sites. You upload the image. The site makes that image available on all their products from prints to jigsaws and mugs, and the customer orders directly from them. Etsy is very different. You create the products yourself with partners, and you ship them to the end customer. So it is a much more hands-on process, and you have to create each product, which is basically the types and sizes of prints you are going to offer for each image you decide to sell. It is harder work, but more satisfying to deal with real people who have decided to buy your work for their wall. I have also been invited to join 2 other sites, one that offers leased prints to companies, mainly in the Washington, D.C. area, and I have been successful with them in having my DC images offered on a temporary basis, as well as a number of outright sales by them to their corporate customers. Finally, a wall mural company approached me to upload some images as wall-sized rolls of wallpaper. Definitely interesting so far, but imagining what might work on a wall is challenging. This is all definitely making an impact, as you can see in this chart through the end of 2024. The drop in stock earnings is being balanced to a large extent by the growth in the sale of my work as prints. Very satisfying. But how do you attract buyers? That is the major issue that you need to grapple with. Many photographers go to a lot of trouble to create high-end portfolio sites, but I'm not convinced that people buy prints that way. If you are a famous photographer, then I'm sure you do get people browsing your portfolio, but I doubt if that applies to me. I don't think many go to a site like Fine Art America and use their less than helpful search system. And if they did, would they find you among 20 million other images? I think some people see, or perhaps remember, an image they have seen and then they try to find out where they might get a print. They may not search at the same time as the original view, but they have an idea of what the image looked like. Then we have the better case of someone seeing an image on social media and finding a link to the print. The most likely case, though, is that someone has decided they need a print for themselves or a gift for someone. They know what they would like, a location that means a lot to them emotionally perhaps, and they actively search on Google Images for something that catches their eye. What I am trying to do is to be visible in the early pages of Google Images to capture that decision to buy a print. I want my images to be seen by people who have an interest in the subject of the image, which does imply that images of places are easier to promote than flowers and abstract art. Those latter subjects really need to be seen as they are difficult to search for. How do you get your images in front of people who are thinking of buying prints now or in the future? Facebook groups are the only viable paths that I have found so far, as most social media sites restrict visibility of posts that include links because they want to make money themselves from people staying on their site, not leaving it. Facebook groups currently shows all posts to the members of that group, including ones with links, assuming the admin doesn't object. I've also found that your own links and your own activity is a much better way to rank highly on Google Images. Don't rely on the print sites doing it for you. They want to sell prints, certainly, but they want to sell anyone's prints, not yours in particular. I've found that articles illustrated by my best photos with links to where someone could buy the print seems to be successful in getting indexed by Google. I normally link to Pictorem, as they have free shipping to the USA and Canada, and you don't want someone to be put off buying when they see the cost of shipping to their home. On my website, I get 50 to 100 visitors a day who spend 3 minutes on average, a very long time bearing in mind how people scroll the web these days. I write articles about cruises I've taken that others might be interested in, and also places where I think there might be a demand for prints. The aim is obviously to impress people, but also to impress Mr. Google. As a result of all this, my sales on Pictorem in 2024 have almost all been promoted in some way on social media on its own, or also on my website. The sales from images that people have just found are much rarer, and these articles lead others to me who want to license the image rather than just have a print. My articles about a Mississippi cruise were found by Condé Nast, and they wanted to license 2 of them for their magazine, $400 in total, and of course I agreed. So is this a way to riches? Unfortunately, no. You must treat it as a job, not a hobby. You must be willing to feed hundreds and eventually thousands of images into the stock agencies and start to build a substantial portfolio of print-worthy images. But if you are successful, you can set some of your expenses against your taxes, in the USA at least. Finally, I've written 2 successful ebooks, Getting Started in Stock and Now Selling Your Fine Art Photography. Both are packed with information, and the links to them can be found in the description below. I hope you have found this useful. Please remember to subscribe and leave any comments or questions below. I'll be happy to respond as best I can. Thank you.